Frontier just did something they very rarely do. They publicly committed to the future of Elite Dangerous financially in their revenue reports. Now, if you don't follow the business side of Elite Dangerous and Frontier, that might not sound like a whole big deal, but it actually is. Because here's the thing, Frontier's financial announcements are usually about their park and zoo management games, the Planet Coasters, the Jurassic Worlds, and all that. Elite, for years, has been the quiet one that we really haven't got a whole lot of information about. So, for Elite to get a named mention for a game they're deliberately going to fund in the future, well, that's quite a shift, and it's actually very important for the future of the game. Bottom line then, we know that Elite is funded into 2027. We got some more evidence for what's coming up, so let's take a look at all of that right now. So the first thing that we do know about is perhaps one of the most interesting things. It is a brand new ship. We discussed this previously. It's a little different to the ships we've seen before. This is a ship-launched vessel. It's a smaller ship that you can launch from your larger ship and then go down to planetary surfaces and explore with it. The idea is that you leave your bigger ship elsewhere and you drop out down into the new ship called the Nomad, and you skim across the terrain to get up close and personal to the organics, the geology, the other discoveries, and just make the whole searching experience, the exploration experience, that much more interesting. Of course, to be clear, this is optional. If you want to go in your main ship and just land like you normally do and get out on foot, or in your SRV, you're totally free to do that as well. The Nomad is going to be available in ARK's Early Access as of the 30th of June, which is also coming alongside the Operations update. So yes, as with nearly all the new ship releases, they will cost money, at least initially. Now, talking about money, let's talk about what Frontier have actually been doing, because all of this is, like I say, pretty important. It's foundational to everything else that's going on with the game. So, by some measures, this year, the 2026 financial year, was Frontier's best year in history. Revenue came in at just £104 million, that's up 16%, that's the second highest ever, but the profit is the real issue here, the real story that Frontier are obviously really focusing on. Now, adjusted operating profit here is around £19 million, and that's had a huge increase. It's up 44%, and that right there is indeed the record. So yeah, it beats anything they've posted before, and quite understandably, when a company's underlying profit has more than doubled, well, they get pretty happy about that. Now, it's also worth pointing out that they spent $17.5 million as well buying back their own shares, and you tend not to do that unless you think the future is quite solid and that the company is starting to bet on itself. Quite a significant amount of money there. Now, the interesting part for you guys out there and everyone watching this video and anyone who's ever played Elite Dangerous is that Elite Dangerous is still, perhaps unfortunately, a small part of Frontier. The main money comes from the park and dinosaur games. They bring in the bulk of the revenue, and I think we all know that. But nonetheless, this year, Frontier specifically called out Elite Dangerous. They mentioned that the whole strategy reset over the past 18 months, which spent a long time recovering from after the failure of Odyssey and a number of other failures they had, have ultimately turned the company around, and they've now returned to revenue growth. And crucially, there's new Elite content confirmed for next year. So we know about some of that because obviously that is on the roadmap. We've got an unannounced update coming later on. We'll touch on that further into the video. And yeah, a struggling studio that promises a future here can just be words, but a company that's posting its best ever profit and then naming Elite as the game that they're going to be funding in the future, well, that's something that's a little bit different to Frontier just saying in terms of their community management that yes, we're going to continue developing Elite Dangerous. Here is pretty much the proof that they're going to keep doing that. The bottom line that we can take away from all of this then is that right now Frontier is doing very well, and it seems they're extending some of that over to Elite Dangerous. So we know that the next big update is Operations. That's coming on the 30th of June. Operations is a free update like with all the others, and well, this is one of those that there's a lot of people excited actually, although personally I'm a little bit unsure about it, largely because it's focusing on a purely multiplayer aspect. I'm also a little bit cautious due to this being a self-contained game, as it were. It's obviously included right inside Elite Dangerous. You have to be playing Elite to be able to play Operations, but effectively you dock up and then go to the menu and you jump to the Operations scenarios. You'll then be essentially teleported to a self-contained mission area where you can play with a bunch of your friends or just matchmake and play with some strangers. So here you'll be able to infiltrate mega ships, you'll be able to go in there and rescue people from besieged damaged stations, you'll be able to fight off looters in offline vessels, a whole range of different scenarios, and there will be more scenarios coming later. Now the part I'm really curious about is that for the first time we're going to be able to go into mega ships, inside mega ships. You'll be able to here explore their interiors, and there will be some zero gravity on foot combat, although zero G I would use that lightly because there's no footage, no announcement of people actually flying around or floating around. Instead everyone is walking around on foot, so I assume the catch there is that everyone is using mag boots. So that means no one walking across the walls, no one walking across the ceilings, unfortunately. But the zero G likely comes in purely in terms of how your bullets actually work and how grenades actually throw. The gravity here will affect some of that. But as for true zero G, as far as I can tell, that doesn't seem to be possible. Although, fingers crossed, hopefully we're misreading that and Frontier have got something secret planned for us. But you know what? Generally, with anything like that, they would announce that front and centre and let us know pretty early on. Another big question is whether or not you can play operations in the solo mode, because obviously this is a multiplayer update and a lot of people play solo, so do the two mix? Well, here's the answer for that, and it does kind of come in two parts. On the good side, we've got the fact that yes, solo play is entirely possible. It has been confirmed by Frontier, and that means you can have, well, a team of 4 you won't be having. Instead, you'll be having a team of 1 planned through missions that are designed for up to 4 players. So the issue, the caveat, I guess, is that yes, you can play operations solo with just 1 person, but ultimately these missions are multiplayer and they're designed for more than 1 person, up to 4 in fact. Perhaps a good recent way of looking at this is the colonization update, which in many ways Frontier kind of said is solo friendly, so you could in practice go out there and build your own stations all on your own. And while yes, a lot of people do this, yeah, it's not that easy. It's a real slog for solo players. So really, the issue here isn't whether or not you can enter operations alone, it's how far you can actually get and how successfully you can do this in solo. And obviously, until we get our hands on it, we don't really know the answer to that just yet. Now, the final thing here is that Frontier didn't just commit to the operations update and the Nomad release. We do know a bunch more ships are on the way. And we also know that Frontier have committed to a new feature reboot that's coming later in the year. Now, there's no official information on this just yet, but obviously the community has been guessing, and I just want to discuss some of the the top runners, the front runners that people have been talking about. The big one here is a reboot of the BGS, the background simulation. That is the living economy, the political layer of the game that the whole galaxy runs on. Ultimately, that would fit into the deeply situated within the core wording that Frontier have used about this features, and others though reckon that it could perhaps be engineering and materials grind finally getting reworked. Ultimately, no one really knows what it's going to be. My lean is that yes, it's more likely going to be the background simulation. That is the one that makes the most sense. To keep it grounded though, we do know that Frontier do have a tendency to slip with release dates. The one we're waiting for now, Operations, was meant to release at the end of 2025, and here we are in mid-2026 and it's only just releasing. That's around about a 6-month or more delay, and the same could happen with the next update. But that said, Frontier say they have committed to updates through their financial year 2027, and I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that their financial year carries on through to June 2027. So yeah, that means we could have, for the update they've already committed to, plus, that's publicly, plus 1 more update after that. Fingers crossed that's exactly what happens, and also that we get this without too much slippage on those release dates. Either way, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. We're now well over 10 years into the release cycle of Elite Dangerous, and it's still going pretty strong, getting a lot of nice updates and still getting funded. Do check out the other video on the screen right here if you want to watch that. Otherwise, do take care, and I'll catch you next time.